Hey, this is Ryan Scher from PCDJ Digital One Audio. What you're looking at is PCDJ Red Mobile 2.0. This is a quick intro video to help you get started with the program. Red 2.0 is our program that we've geared or designed right around the needs of a mobile DJ. Really, the objective was to keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it as simple as possible, give you everything you need without that screen clutter. To briefly go over what you're looking at, up top here we have your two players, player A and player B. Down below you have your browser section, which is your track library or database. PCDJ Red Mobile plays both audio and karaoke files. If you need video support, that is exclusively in PCDJ Dex 2.0, the big brother to Red Mobile 2.0. To show you how to get started here, when you first bring up the program, you're going to be presented with this box. I don't get this because I already had this previously installed and I've opened it a few times since having it installed. But you'll be presented with this box right away. Okay, so if your library is empty and if you haven't created any playlists, this is a quick way to add files. What'll happen though, if you use any of these functions, is it'll add all your songs to the database. So they'll go into the database, which is one major list or your bulk list of all your files if you wanted to store them that way. And to add them, just to give you a little insight on each of these buttons, if you click Add Files, this will allow you to select individual files from your hard drive, or multiple files if you hold down Control or Shift, and you can select groups of files at a time and add them in. Add Folder will add an entire directory of music. So if you click this button, it'll allow you to navigate your hard drive, select the folder, hit OK, and it'll import that entire folder. Import your iTunes library. This will import all your songs. If you keep your iTunes library in the default location, it'll bring all your iTunes files in at once. Will not bring the playlists in. That's actually something we're looking for for a later date. And then you can import playlists, which are essentially M3Us, which is really a standard playlist format throughout the industry. From your basic media players to your DJ software programs, they all seem to use these. So you can import playlists you've created with other apps. I'm going to show you what I feel is a better way to kind of create lists. To just explain the browser a little bit more, as I said, this is your database. This would show you every song if you wanted it to. You could basically import your entire collection into just the database. Your history, which would clearly give you a history of all the songs you've played. Up to date. You can clear that on a regular basis and use it just for events. After the event is over, you can even create a playlist from that history. If it was a great event and you want to reuse the list, you can do that. And then lists. Lists are essentially your playlists or your groups. This is what you'll probably use most often to store your various groups of files. And to generate a list from a folder, which I feel is the best way to kind of create things here, you have your Explorer tab down at the bottom. You click your Explorer. I'm going to navigate to my desktop because that's where I've stored a little sample folder of some files we're going to use for test purposes. Click Desktop, and we'll use this one. It says Dex Intro. I'm going to use this files for the intro here for Red Mobile as well. So we're going to create a new playlist from folder. As you see, you're going to be presented with a little message box that says a new playlist was created based on the selected folder. Now this happened really quickly for me because I only have a few tracks in that folder. I'm going to go up here under playlists. As you can see, I now have Dex Intro. I'll select it. And there's all the files, the corresponding files within that particular folder on the drive. So I've got both some karaoke and audio files in here at the moment, which is actually really clever here. We've implemented some filters. So if you just want to view audio, you can click the audio tab. It'll show you only my audio tracks. If I click karaoke, it'll show you only my karaoke tracks within that folder. So from here, I can, let's talk a little bit more about the database. You can essentially move up or down songs throughout your list by clicking these up and down arrows. If I want to reorder the song listings, I can click Add again to add additional songs to this playlist. I can click Remove, and it will actually remove the selected track from the playlist. And I can clear the entire playlist if I wanted to. So And then over here, as we'll get into this a little bit more in a later video, you can shuffle your playlist by simply clicking shuffle. It'll randomize the order of the list entirely every time you click it. What that's good for is if you wanted to enable autoplay or auto mix through that particular playlist. If you click shuffle first, it'll randomize the order so that when you do click autoplay, they'll be played in that new random order. To quickly go over the preferences, which is also another thing that's going to be very important for you to get started. As you see at the top left-hand corner and right-hand corner of the screen up here, you have these little buttons with a little circular gear on them. If you click that, that's going to enter your preferences, and you'll be presented immediately with your general tab. Now here, at the very top, is where your skins options are. Okay, Red Mobile is skinnable. We expect a lot of user-submitted skins over time. We're going to create some more of our own. So keep checking at PCDJ.com. Keep checking the Red Mobile product page. There'll be a link there for additional skins. Right now, have the default skin option here at a few different resolutions. So what you're going to do from this drop down is pick the corresponding resolution that best matches your screen resolution. So if you're running 1366 by 768, you click that. 1280 by 800, you'd click that, and so on. So below, to go through these other options, and this is something I most certainly recommend having enabled. If you have a computer that was built within the last couple of years, it's going to be fast enough. This is high quality time stretching. Just to explain a little bit, that's the ability to speed up or slow down the song, adjust tempo without key or pitch. So you can speed it up and they don't sound like chipmunks. You can slow it down and you can get that Darth Vader type voice effect. Below here you have the reset deck after load function. This just resets any settings that you've made, any pitch adjustments, volume control, EQ, and so forth. It'll reset when you load a new song. I almost always certainly have that enabled. I usually don't want to use whatever I've done previously with that deck or manipulated the deck for the previous song. Below here, beat matching when auto mixing. That means when you enable auto mix through your playlist, that the software will attempt to beat mix for you. We have a really good sync function in here, and this does a really good job. Generally speaking, when I'm using auto mix, I'm looking for just radio smooth transitions, so I usually do not use this option. This function is something the use current list when auto mixing, I definitely recommend having this selected. If you do not have this selected, when you enable auto mix, it will always play through your auto mix playlist, which is down here. So that is like your default wait list. If you do not select this option when enabling auto mix, it's always going to look at that folder to play from. So make sure to check off use current lists. And what this allows you to do is no matter what list you're in, its focus is going to be on that list, and it's going to pull tracks from that list when auto mixing. So I would suggest checking this off. Show hints. I believe this is on by default, and you may want to leave it on. What this is just hover tooltips. If you hover over any button within the interface, it's going to show you a description of what that button is and what it does. Below this, you have use, slow, speed, pitch reset. What this allows you to do, and you can see right here, you have a little circular button at the middle of the pitch or key slider or tempo slider. If you click that when this is enabled, it'll slowly decrease or increase the tempo or pitch until it reaches the zero position. So it'll center itself out at 0 slowly. So it'll be a gradual thing, something that the audience wouldn't be able to hear if you wanted to get down bass to 0. If you do not have this selected, if it's unchecked, when clicking that little circular button, it's going to reset to 0 immediately. Use perceptual automatic gain. This is something you most certainly want to select as well. What's a little different about this is a lot of programs have automatic or auto gain, which essentially just tries to play everything at the same gain level, same dB level. It's very similar, except for this technology is kind of built around human hearing and how we perceive gain or volume or loudness. So if you select this, all your songs should sound and be played at the same level. So you most certainly want to use that option. Enable jog wheel scratch mode. This just allows you, if you see on screen, we do have some jog dials. If you have this enabled, when manipulating the jog dial with your left click function, you can scratch the audio in real time, or karaoke for that matter if you wanted to do that. Remember history. That'll just make sure that your files are logged in the history file as you're playing them. Remember song equalizer settings. So if you adjust EQ on a particular track and you have this enabled, it will always use those settings next time you load the file, which is pretty handy. You know, if you have a particular file that doesn't have a lot of mid-range or something and you boost that up, next time you load the file, it will use those previous presets that you previously configured on that file. So auto mix fade time, pretty self-explanatory as well. This just means that during auto mix, while it's playing through a particular playlist, it'll mix on the remaining seconds. So if it says 10 seconds here, you can move it left or right. If it says 10 seconds here, or 9.7 for that matter, it's going to blend at 9.7 seconds remaining into the next file. We do have auto cue on the beginning and end of the songs automatically in the players. So usually at a 10 to 7 seconds fade time, you're usually pretty good. It does a really good job at that range. Pitch tempo range. This just allows you to change the range of which you can adjust tempo or pitch. So you can go all the way up to 50% or all the way down to 4. Depending on style of music you're mixing. This could allow you to get pretty creative. You can mix high tempo songs with slower songs, vice versa. And then you can go, when you're at the lower settings, you have a little bit finer control, which some people prefer. I usually leave this around 24%. I find that's a really good range for both fine control and a good range for mixing all different kinds of genres. This is your cutoff filter mode. Basically, you have a filter function in Red Mobile, low and high pass, so depending on where this is, it'll adjust the frequency of the high and low pass filter. Load songs in RAM. This is usually enabled by default. This means that when you load a file in either player A or B in Red Mobile, it's going to load the entire track into your real-time memory. That just ensures that you're skip-free. It's going to play back really nice and smooth. If you do have an older computer, you may want to put this on auto mode because then it'll pick the best method based on your preferences. So if you it only wants to load part of it in RAM, if you don't have a lot of real-time memory available, you'd leave that on auto. Crossfader curve. This adjusts your curve control, just like a lot of hardware, physical-based, external mixers have curve control on the fader. You can adjust your curve here. I usually leave this about dead center. It gives you a nice curve on the audio when you're fading from track to track. Okay, across the top, you have general here. You have audio and MIDI. At the top of this box, you have select MIDI in devices. You can select multiple devices as well. If you had a MIDI controller connected, which I do not, clearly that space is empty, it would present you with the MIDI controller name. You'd see it right at the top of this list. If it's a supported device, it's as simple as just clicking on the MIDI device and hitting OK, and it's going to be enabled and ready to go. We do support multiple different controllers natively. For a complete list, you're going to want to keep tabs on the PCDJ Red Mobile product page at PCDJ.com. We're going to update that list accordingly as we release new updates that have more controllers supported. So just keep tabs there for your controller. I'll show you in a bit. You do have the option to map your own controller too. Select audio device. This is where your sound card comes in. As you can see, I'm just using the built-in sound card on this computer just for this video's purpose. But you can hit this drop-down menu. If you have a professional-grade audio card connected, you're going to see it right here. We would highly recommend a pro-grade audio card. I know we offer the American Audio VersaPort through PCDJ.com. It's a really good card for this. Great value for the money. But any professional-grade multi-channel sound card with either Core Audio for Mac or ASIO for Windows is going to do the trick. In this instance, just to show you, I'm going to select one of these sound cards, Gigaport AG, and again, you want to use the ASIO option, which is like a lower latency driver, which means just faster control over the software, more or less, and usually a little hotter output volume, a little better gain, a little more punch on the low end. So we'll pick the ASIO driver. Below that, you do have latency, which is basically the speed in which the communication to the sound card is. So the lower the latency, the faster the reaction of the software, but the more real-time memory and more processor power the software is going to use. So you kind of want to adjust this based on your computer specifications. If it's a really fast computer, you should be able to bring this down as low as 5 milliseconds, sometimes 2, or all the way up to 98, which you should actually never have to use, regardless of if it's an ASIO sound card or not. So in this instance, we'll leave it right around 19. And here's your output mode. Okay, normal. Normal is just going to play a single output. Okay, you're not going to have any Q channel. It's just a main output, and you're done. So you'll just use your single sound card output, 1, 2 if it's a multi-channel card, and you're done with it. Split mode, which is if you don't have a professional audio card, you can use this mode so that you get 2-channel separation. What this will do is it'll take that little stereo output that you have on any standard laptop, the little green or black plug typically, and it'll split that stereo channel into a left and right mono channels. So you'll have the left channel would be your main output, and the right side would be your headphones. So you need a little splitter adapter for that in order to accomplish that. Multi-channel sound card, speaker on front, headphone on rear, that's the default. But multi-channel sound card is what you almost always want to select if you have a professional audio card. This will allow you to send one output on the card for your headphones or one for main if you choose to go that way, which would mean I wouldn't have this selected down here, but I'll get into that in a second. So if I just have this selected, what's going to happen is speakers on the one output, headphones on the other output. Typically speaking, when you're using a multi-channel sound card, and in my instance this is always the case, you're going to want to use an external mixer. So I usually have this selected in conjunction with multi-channel sound card. So what that's going to do is it's going to send player A out through the 1, 2 output on the sound card, and player B out through the 3, 4 output. So you're then able to run those 2 lines into 2 separate channels on the back of your mixer. 1, 2 to line 1, 3, 4 to line 2, and you'll be able to use your physical external mixer for all your queuing, monitoring, EQ, crossfading, all that fun stuff. So we're going to leave that there. Reverse master monitor, that just allows you to tweak it. If you're using the internal mixer, you can swap the monitor for the main and the main for the monitor back and forth. Disable crossfader and volume when in external mixer mode. I usually use this option just in case, if you accidentally adjust volume or move the fader over on screen and you're using an external mixer, you can complicate things. You can forget where the fader is on screen and try to get audio out of the mixer and wonder why there's no sound. So almost always enable this disable crossfader volume when in external mixer mode. And here is the additional audio device for previewing and monitoring. So if you do have 2 sound cards in the computer, 2 separate cards, which is kind of the old way of doing things, but some people still do it that way, you can pick that sound card or your secondary sound card for just your headphone cue. So that about sums it up for that area of the program. And quickly, one thing this program can do is scan for your beats per minute. It does a real good job of calculating them. It's usually spot on, and of course, because of that, you can use functions in the player like the sync. So if I right-click in here, you're going to see multiple options. You can preview a song, which will send it to the preview player, or typically your headphone cue channel. Set as next, which if you trigger that while in auto mix, it's going to play that file next in the list. So even if it's down further in your auto mix list, if you set it as next, that's going to be the next song it plays. You can load your files from here. Load to deck 1, load to deck 2. You can of course drag and drop into the player as well. Analyze. What this will do is it'll analyze the file you have highlighted for the BPM. If you select Analyze All, it's going to analyze the entire library, the entire list that you're currently focused in or in. You can edit your file info, which allows you to just edit your tag information and update it. Let's see, let me just show you real quick how easy it is to BPM a file. You can just right click on it, analyze, and you'll see right here it says analyzing David Guetta and Chris Willis, and bang, done, 129.9. It also gives you your time, which is obviously very useful. So you'll want to BPM your entire catalog, and you want to analyze everything so that you have those beats per minute. Let's see. And just to go over, briefly over the player section and what everything is, I'm going to just load a track so you can see the waveforms and everything else. So it'll instantly load, especially if you've played it before, because it's already built the waveform. So you'll get up here, you'll get a representation of the waveform. You can either get closer to the waveform, or zoom in and zoom out of the waveform by using these functions. I usually leave the one up here zoomed out so you can see more of the audio song. Over here, you have the full track along this line, which you can quickly scan through by grabbing this slider here. And then in the middle is where you'll see the waveform in real time, which as you can see, it's right next to player B's waveform. This is so that you can see, based on the beat grid we give you, these lines, if the songs are lining up when beat mixed. The sync function here works really good. It'll sync to the next player. It'll actually lock to the beat. And generally speaking, that's all you need to do to see these two lines kind of match up and line up. You have volume control right here on the player. Clearly this is your jog wheel. If I'm playing a file, I can scratch it. And let's see, I probably need to, if I'm using my internal sound card, you're definitely not going to be able to run that low of a latency. So if I'm playing a file, you see I can scratch it real easily. Key lock, as I discussed before, this is the time stretching ability. This is the ability to adjust the speed of the file without adjusting key or tempo. You always want that on. Here you have, by default, your loops, which are single click options. If I trigger 1/2, it's going to give me a half beat loop, 1, 1, 2, and so on. You can swap loops in this section for cue points. So if I just click this button, this is loops, this is cues. You're going to be presenting with your hot cues. And to quickly set a cue point, trigger it. And you can clear the cue point by right-clicking on it and then clicking it again. So that's simple. Over on the left side, by default, here you're going to have your EQ, high, mids, and lows. Pretty self-explanatory. But by triggering these left arrow and right area below that you can flip through various effects. In here we have a flanger, your echo, auto pan, phaser, delay, reverb, and beat wah, and back to EQ. So each of those will do different effects, and I can touch on that in a later video. There will be a series of them. Of course, in the mixer section here, you have your crossfader. And something that a lot of the mobile DJs love is this little Mix Now button. What that'll do is if you have playing a song in player A, and I want to quickly fade over to player B and start that player. So if I have something loaded in play, I'm playing in A, I trigger Mix Now. It'll fade out of the existing player that's playing over to player B, start that player, and not only that, but if you're in a current list, it'll actually select the next track in the list. So it'll take the next track in order and load it to the player that just stopped. So it'll fade over to B, it's be playing B, it'll load the next track into A. So it's kind of a mix between Mix Now and Auto Mix in some of our older titles. That is about as quick a start as you're going to get. I don't want to run too long because we're going to put out a series of videos. I know that if you're like me, we all have a little case of ADD these days. So I'm going to try to keep these to a minimum. Please keep tabs on the PCDJ site. Check out our YouTube videos on our YouTube channel. And we will put out a series of emails to all our customers as well, kind of giving them these tutorials to help you guide you through using the application.